The sky cracked open in a flash of brilliant light as the alien fleet entered the Earth's atmosphere, with a force so immense that it felt like the very air trembled beneath its power. Across the globe, people stared up in horror at the enormous ships blocking out the sun like dark omens of destruction. No one had expected them, not like this, not so soon. A massive shape appeared in orbit over the United States. It was the first of many, a colossal warship with jagged lines and glowing weapons lining its hull. The Xiphorians had come, the universe's conquerors, and Earth was their next target. On the ground, chaos erupted as military bases scrambled to respond to the sudden invasion. The United Nations called an emergency summit, but no one had any answers. Earth's defenses were too weak. The Xiphorians were too powerful. In a matter of hours, their ships had taken up positions around the planet, each more advanced than the last. It was clear humanity was outmatched, outclassed, and unprepared for what was to come. Lord Varos, the commander of the Xiphorian fleet, watched Earth's frantic efforts from the safety of his flagship. He knew the humans were weak, their technology primitive in comparison to his own, and this invasion would be nothing more than a routine mission. He ordered the fleets to prepare for full assault, while his fleet continued to hover above the Earth, waiting for the time to strike. It was almost laughable to him how easily he could obliterate their cities. With a single command, their air forces would be wiped from the sky in seconds. The world's governments debated frantically as their major cities were lined up for destruction. Military generals debated on strategies that they all knew would fail. The Xiphorian shields were too strong, their weapons far beyond anything Earth's armies had ever seen. Still, they tried launching everything they could, missiles, fighter jets. Everything was destroyed in moments as the Xiphorian ships unleashed their terrifying firepower. The streets were filled with panic as people realized the magnitude of the threat they were facing. They could do nothing but wait for the inevitable destruction. Meanwhile, in a top-secret underground facility, deep beneath the mountains, a group of human scientists worked tirelessly against the clock in a secure lab far removed from the world above. Diver Elena Hart and her team of engineers had been toiling for years on a project that seemed impossible. Even now, they faced failure after failure as they struggled to harness the full potential of a weapon unlike anything the world had seen. Railguns, their concept was simple enough: harness electromagnetic energy to propel a projectile at immense speeds. But bringing that dream to life was something else entirely. It was technology that had been scoffed at by the military for years, dismissed as impractical, too dangerous. But now it was Earth's only hope. As the Xiphorian ships loomed overhead, the team's latest prototype lay in the test chamber, a massive railgun capable of launching projectiles faster than any missile and harder than any armor could withstand. A single shot could change everything, but they needed time, and the clock was ticking faster than they had ever feared. Lord Varos's forces were already closing in on Earth's largest cities. It was now or never. The fate of the planet depended on a weapon that humanity wasn't even sure would work, and the terrifying question lingered in the back of everyone's mind: what if it failed? The countdown to humanity's extinction seemed inevitable as the Xiphorian warships hovered ominously above Earth's capital cities. Like New York, Tokyo, and London fell silent as air defense systems were shredded by the invaders' unstoppable force. There was no time left for diplomatic negotiations, no time for a counterattack. Earth's militaries were overwhelmed, their weapons too primitive to even scratch the surface of the Xiphorian armor. Humanity had no allies in the stars, no power beyond their own world, and that world was now under siege. In the shadow of this calamity, there was a quiet flicker of hope deep beneath the Earth's crust. At the heart of a hidden military base on the edge of the Arctic Circle, Dr. Elena Hart and Colonel Victor Hayes worked in feverish haste. Their project, once a lofty ambition, was now the only chance for humanity's survival. The Railgun prototype was unlike anything the world had ever seen, capable of sending a solid slug through the air at speeds faster than sound, and with the kind of kinetic force that could tear through any shield. But it was untested, and every moment spent waiting could be one more moment closer to the planet's destruction. The scientists worked with a single thought in mind: the human race could not afford to fail. The railgun had been in development for over a decade, but the breakthrough had only come within the last few months As global panic set in and cities burned to the ground, the prototype was rushed through final testing. While the engineers worked to fine-tune the firing system, Hart and Hayes monitored the updates from the front lines. News from devastated cities across the world filtered through the base's communication channels. The Xiphorians were deploying ground forces, their shock troops already touching down in major cities like Washington, D.C. and Paris. They were beginning their invasion on the ground. Hart's eyes darted nervously across the screen displaying the incoming alien forces. She knew they didn't have much time before the Xiphorians turned their full attention on Earth's military installations. Then it would be too late. They had one chance to make the railgun work just once, to prove that humanity could fight back. Colonel Hayes stood by her side, his face grim as he scanned the battlefield reports coming in from Earth's remaining military forces. It was a moment of truth. He had never been the type to put faith in unproven technologies. But now he had no choice. It was the only weapon they had left. He gave Hart a nod, letting her know it was time for the test. The air in the control room grew thick with tension as Hart pulled up the final sequence on her console. The massive railgun stood in the chamber just beyond the reinforced glass, its immense length and sleek design making it seem almost like a living beast waiting to be unleashed. Hart's fingers hovered above the activation button. She could feel the weight of the decision in her bones. This shot could save Earth or doom them all. It was all riding on one moment. With a steady breath, she slammed her finger down on the button and activated the railgun. The entire facility rumbled as the electromagnetic coils hummed with energy. The ground shook as the massive projectile shot forward with a force that left no doubt about its power. It sped through the air, faster than the eye could follow, the blast reverberating through the base, and the impact made the ground tremble as though the world itself had been struck. The live feed from the targeting systems showed the results within seconds. The alien ship, which had been hovering above the ocean just off the coast of North America, was hit by the projectile. The force of the impact was catastrophic. The alien warship's shields flickered for a split second before collapsing entirely, allowing the railgun's deadly projectile to pierce the hull and tear through the ship's core. It erupted in a brilliant explosion of sparks and debris. For a brief moment there was silence. Then a voice crackled over the comms in disbelief. It worked, Hayes whispered. His eyes widened as the weight of what they had just achieved sank in. But it was only the beginning, because the Xiphorians were watching, and they were far from pleased. The news spread like wildfire across the world's communication networks. The unthinkable had happened. The humans had struck a blow against the Xiphorians. Their overwhelming might had been pierced by a weapon humanity had no business developing. But while the world celebrated in awe, the Xiphorians were far from impressed. They had underestimated the humans once before, but now they understood the true scale of their mistake. Lord Veros stood at the heart of his flagship, the ***, Dreadvale ***, his cold eyes scanning the data streams, showing the destruction of one of his warships. He clenched his fists in anger. The humans had found a weakness, but it would not be enough to stop them. A flurry of orders flew across the Xiphorian command bridge as Veros recalibrated their strategy. The humans had weaponized their desperate resourcefulness, and the railgun had proven capable of breaching their advanced shields. They would adapt quickly, but this was far from the first time they'd encountered primitive civilizations that somehow managed to defy the odds. The Xiphorians had always been able to overwhelm their enemies with sheer force, and this would be no different. They would adapt their technology, they would reinforce their ships, and they would crush the humans. Back on Earth, the world was electrified by the victory, yet to those who had witnessed the event firsthand, there was no time to celebrate. The railgun shot had been a triumph, but it had only disabled a single ship. The Xiphorian fleet was still vast, still imposing, and they would come for more. There was no room for complacency. Hart and Hayes knew this better than anyone, and as the communications from the battlefront poured in, they realized the magnitude of their challenge. "We've only delayed the inevitable," Hayes muttered as he surveyed the latest intelligence report. His hand rested on the control panel in front of him, where the railgun's data streamed in from multiple satellites. "They're adapting faster than we can keep up with." Indeed, the Xiphorians had already begun to reinforce their fleet. The energy shields that had once seemed impenetrable were now reconfigured to resist the Railguns' explosive power. In a matter of hours, the alien warships had undergone significant upgrades. The data revealed that each ship now had layered shields designed specifically to counteract the electromagnetic bursts from the Railguns' projectiles. With this new layer, the Xiphorians were preparing to launch a counteroffensive. But Hart was undeterred. She sat in front of her console, her fingers dancing across the keyboard as she worked to enhance the Railguns' technology. "We can do better," she said, more to herself than anyone else. Her mind raced through 1,000 calculations, already analyzing the Xiphorians' defensive adaptations. What they had seen was only a glimpse of what they could do. The Xiphorians had made a fatal error. They had thought one railgun could be a fluke, a one-time failure in their plans. But humanity had more in store than they could ever imagine. Colonel Hayes leaned over Hart's shoulder, his voice low. "We need more time. We need to keep them off balance long enough for us to hit them harder than they expect." Hart nodded without looking up. "I can push the Railguns even further. I can refine the targeting system. But we have to move fast. They won't give us another chance." With the world now in a race against time, the forces of Earth and the Xiphorians both prepared for the next move. A battle was brewing, but this time the humans were ready for more than just survival. They had something that the Xiphorians had never considered, a weapon that could change the course of history. The question was whether humanity could hold the line long enough to unlock its full potential. Across the battlefield, the Xiphorian ships began to advance. They would strike fast and hard, but they would not expect what was coming next. And deep beneath the Earth's surface, in the heart of humanity's final defense, Hart began to build the next iteration of the Railgun, knowing that it would be humanity's key to survival. If she succeeded this time, the Xiphorians would learn a new definition of defeat. The world held its breath as the next phase of humanity's desperate defense unfolded. The Xiphorians had reinforced their fleet, but they hadn't anticipated the humans' resolve. To the untrained eye, the war might have seemed like an unwinnable struggle, but humanity had a weapon they hadn't yet fully revealed. Railguns were now in production at a feverish pace across the globe as more and more installations were built to deploy them. The first prototype was only the beginning. The Railguns had already proven their effectiveness, and now Earth's military forces were scrambling to adapt them into every conceivable form of combat. Elena Hart stood in the heart of the underground facility, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she fine-tuned the next iteration of the Railgun's design. Her mind raced with the pressure of time. The Xiphorians were fast learners. They had adapted their energy shields and enhanced their weaponry. The next strike would need to hit harder, faster, and with greater precision than before. As she analyzed the incoming data from the battlefronts, she realized something important. The Xiphorians had underestimated the humans' ability to innovate under pressure. Meanwhile, Colonel Victor Hayes stood in the command center monitoring the global battlefield. He could see the Xiphorian ships closing in on Earth's remaining defenses. The ground forces were struggling to hold their positions against the overwhelming power of the alien troops, but Hayes was unshaken. His faith in the Railguns had only grown stronger. The first shot had been a fluke, a lucky hit, but now humanity had a chance to hit them where it hurt. The next strike wouldn't be a lucky shot, it would be a planned assault. Deploy the new Railguns, Hayes barked into his communicator. Target the largest ship in their fleet. We have one chance to make this work. Hart's voice came over the comms just as Hayes issued the command. The new modifications are ready. They should be able to bypass the Xiphorian shield layers, but we have to fire from a much greater distance. The ship has to be within range. We don't have time for caution, Hayes replied, his eyes narrowing as he watched the approaching alien ships on the holographic map prepare for a direct hit. The air in the command center hummed with tension as the new Railguns were activated across various battle fronts. The new version of the Railgun had been re-engineered to harness more power and launch projectiles at higher velocities. But the challenge was their accuracy. The shields had proven difficult to crack, but the new adjustments aimed to manipulate the electromagnetic forces in such a way that they would overload the Xiphorian defenses. The scientists had worked around the clock refining their technology to give the humans the edge they so desperately needed. As the Xiphorian fleet neared Earth, the ground troops prepared for another assault. Their advanced plasma cannons fired from orbit, decimating the surface with laser-like precision. Their shock troops began their descent toward Earth's cities, and the world trembled at the thought of what would happen when they arrived. But just as the first alien dropships began to break through the atmosphere, a sudden blast erupted from one of the military satellites hovering above Earth. The Railgun, now fully armed, released a devastating salvo aimed directly at the largest of the Xiphorian warships, the **Veros Prime **. The shot was like a thunderclap in the sky. The electromagnetic force surrounding the Railgun's projectile warped the air around it, and the massive metal slug shot forward at a blinding speed. It tore through the atmosphere faster than sound, racing toward the alien flagship. The Xiphorian vessel attempted to adapt its shields, but this time they weren't fast enough. The slug collided with the shields, and for a fraction of a second, the energy barriers flickered before shattering completely. The Railgun's projectile plunged through the alien ship's outer hull, and then deeper still, the impact triggered a chain reaction within the ship's systems. Inside the **Veros Prime **, panic erupted. The bridge was thrown into chaos as alarms blared and crew members scrambled to contain the damage. But it was too late. The impact had caused massive internal explosions, rupturing the power core and sending shockwaves throughout the ship. The Xiphorian vessel lurched violently before disintegrating in a brilliant fireball of metal and energy. The light of the explosion illuminated the sky, marking the fall of the first true symbol of the Xiphorians' might. Across Earth, military command centers erupted in cheers as the news spread across the globe. Humanity's hopes surged in unison. The Xiphorians were not invincible. After all, Earth had dealt the invaders their first true defeat, and while the victory was a monumental achievement, it was only the beginning. The war was far from over, but for the first time since the invasion began, humanity stood a fighting chance. But Lord Veros was watching from his flagship, and this time he was not amused the humans had struck a blow, but they had no idea how deeply they had angered him. The explosion of the Veros Prime was visible from every corner of Earth, a massive fireball that lit up the night sky. Humanity had watched as their railgun had shattered the invincible facade of the Xiphorian fleet. For a fleeting moment, it seemed as though the impossible had been achieved, a symbol of hope for a planet on the brink of annihilation. But as the debris from the shattered warship fell back toward the atmosphere, Lord Veros' rage began to simmer into something far more dangerous. His face twisted in fury as he stood before his council on the Dreadvale **, the flagship that now commanded the remainder of the Xiphorian fleet. The Xiphorian leader's voice was cold and methodical, each word dripping with venom. The humans have underestimated us. They believe they have won a victory, but their triumph will be short-lived. He turned to his lieutenants, his eyes seething with contempt. The shields failed, but that was only because we were not prepared. Now we will adapt, and we will crush them. With a snap of his fingers, he issued the order for full-scale retaliation. The Xiphorian fleet would adjust, reinforcing its shield technology and bolstering their weapons with new energy configurations. Earth had made the mistake of thinking they had dealt a decisive blow, but now Veros was about to show them what true power looked like. His forces would recalibrate and attack Earth with relentless fury, more powerful and more prepared than ever before. On Earth, Colonel Victor Hayes stood in the war room, his eyes glued to the holographic display as Xiphorian ships quickly began shifting course. He watched as the data streamed in, confirming the enemy was mobilizing for a counteroffensive. The Xiphorians weren't retreating. They were recalibrating and preparing for vengeance. "This isn't over," Hayes muttered, his brow furrowing. "We've pissed them off, and now they're coming back twice as strong." Dr. Elena Hart, still shaken by the success of the railgun test, had barely finished catching her breath before the next wave of urgency came crashing down. The momentary victory had only given them a brief reprieve. She turned to Hayes, determination in her eyes. "We need to get the next iteration of the railguns ready, and we need to improve them. Fast. The Xiphorians are about to turn this into a much deadlier game." Hayes nodded. "I'll get the military to double down on production. We need everything we can get. The railguns are our only chance." The scientists worked in overdrive, pushing their research forward to develop the next stage of railgun technology. It was clear that the earlier model had worked, but it was also clear that the Xiphorians had learned from their defeat. They would adapt, and Earth would have to do the same. Time was running out, and the next attack could be the last. Meanwhile, the Xiphorian ships were preparing for a new wave of offensive strikes. Smaller craft began descending toward Earth's surface, flanked by reinforcements carrying heavy plasma cannons and ground assault troops. The full-scale invasion was about to begin. Earth's defenses, already stretched thin, would soon face an onslaught that could erase entire cities in hours. As the Xiphorians descended, humanity's ground forces took their positions. The railguns had proven their worth, but the stakes were higher now. Every shot would count. Soldiers geared up, knowing that the railguns would have to hold the line if they were to have any chance of survival. In the chaos of the battlefield, one thing was certain: the battle for Earth had shifted into a new phase. The Xiphorians would no longer underestimate humanity's resolve. They were coming with everything they had, and Earth would have to do the same. The question was, could humanity evolve fast enough to keep up with the alien juggernaut barreling toward them? The coming days would decide the fate of Earth. It was now or never. The tension in Earth's command centers was palpable as the final preparations were underway. The Xiphorian counteroffensive had already begun, with the first wave of dropships entering Earth's atmosphere and descending toward major cities. The world's military leaders knew this would be their most crucial fight to date. If the railguns failed, or if they were overwhelmed by the alien forces, Earth would face total obliteration. The stakes had never been higher. Alina Hart stood at the control panel once again, watching as data streamed across her screen. The improvements she and her team had made to the railguns were ready, but there was no time for second guesses. The Xiphorians had adapted quickly, and the new shield technology that had once seemed impenetrable was now even stronger. Their ships had already entered low orbit and were launching orbital bombardments. As they began to take their ground forces to Earth's cities, Hart's heart raced, but she focused her mind on the task at hand. This time, the railguns would need to hit harder, faster, and with more precision than ever before. There was no room for failure. "We're ready," Hart said firmly, turning to Hayes, who stood nearby watching the data unfold. "We've enhanced the systems, we've made adjustments to allow for faster fire rates and increased targeting accuracy. If we can maintain control and deploy them in the right locations, we can hold the Xiphorians back." Hayes gave a grim nod. "Just make sure it works, Doc. We don't have another option." The first railgun was fired over the Atlantic. At one of the incoming Xiphorian ships, it soared into the sky with blinding speed, its electromagnetic charge lighting up the heavens as it collided with the alien ship's reinforced shield. But this time things were different. The Xiphorian shields flickered, but held. This new assault wasn't as effective as before, and the ship remained unharmed. "Damn it," Hayes yelled as he watched the screen. "They've reinforced their defenses already. They're learning too quickly." Hart's mind raced. She was already adjusting on the fly. Her fingers moved over the panel once again as she calculated the trajectory of the next shot. As much as she hated to admit it, they were running out of time. The Xiphorians were not only adapting their technology, but they were also coordinating their forces with military precision. The full might of their fleet was bearing down on Earth, and humanity's chances of survival seemed to shrink by the minute. "This isn't going to be enough," Hart muttered to herself. "We need something more powerful. We need to break their core defenses." In the distance, an ominous rumble shook the air as another wave of Xiphorian warships descended. This time they were targeting Earth's military installations directly. The human ground forces began to respond in full force. engaging with everything they had. But the Zephyrian ground troops were relentless, equipped with energy weapons and armored suits that made them nearly invincible on the battlefield. The Zephyrian ground forces unleashed a new wave of terror across Earth's cities. In New York, Los Angeles, and Paris, massive explosions rocked the streets as the invaders moved closer to their objectives. Earth's forces fought valiantly, but were clearly outclassed. The Zephyrians weren't just invaders, they were conquerors, and they weren't about to let a mere railgun stand in their way. But humanity's desperation was its greatest weapon. Hayes gave the order to fire again, this time targeting a massive mothership that loomed high above Europe. The new railgun shot was faster, more powerful than the previous ones. It tore through the atmosphere like a comet, speeding toward its target. The alien ship's shields shimmered and cracked under the pressure, but this time they didn't hold. The railgun slammed into the Zephyrian ship with a devastating impact, rupturing its hull and sending debris scattering in every direction. The ship erupted in a cataclysmic explosion, lighting up the sky with brilliant flashes of energy. The destruction was massive, and for a moment, it seemed as though Earth had struck another decisive blow. The humans had done it again. They had taken down another flagship. But Lord Varos wasn't finished. In his private chamber aboard the Dreadvale ***, his hands tightened into fists as he watched the display. The humans had shown some ingenuity, but they had no idea what awaited them. This time, he would show them what true power was. The Zephyrians had underestimated Earth before, but now they knew better. They would come back stronger, more prepared, and more ruthless. Earth had taken down a few ships, but it wouldn't be enough to save them. The war was far from over, and Varos wasn't going to stop until every last human had been wiped from existence. The victory over the Zephyrian mothership was fleeting, a brief spark of hope in an otherwise darkening sky. Humanity's cheers echoed through the command centers, but the celebration was short-lived. In the aftermath of the explosion, as Earth's forces adjusted to the shifting tides of battle, they began to see the truth. The Zephyrians were far from defeated. They were regrouping and readying for a more decisive retaliation. The Zephyrian fleet, now battered but not broken, reorganized quickly under Lord Varos's command. And they weren't coming back to negotiate. They were coming to annihilate. Dr. Elena Hart could feel the weight of the world on her shoulders as she watched the data streams coming from Earth's space stations. Despite the destruction of one flagship, the Zephyrians were relentless. Their fleet now seemed larger, more unified, and better prepared for the next wave of assault. Worse still, their ground forces were already making significant progress in capturing strategic locations around the globe. Earth's resistance was faltering under the pressure of the alien onslaught. "They're not stopping," Hart muttered under her breath, her fingers dancing across her keyboard, trying to find a way to overcome the new challenge. "They've learned from every defeat and are evolving faster than we can adjust." Colonel Hayes stood by her side, his arms crossed, a grim look on his face. "This was never going to be easy. We've been playing catch-up from the start. But we can't stop now. They're coming for us, and this time, we need to hit them harder." The Global Command had already ordered the construction of more railguns, more powerful, more advanced than the ones before. But even with these improvements, there was a sinking feeling in the room. How could they keep up with an enemy that could adapt so quickly? The Zephyrians had been studying human tactics and technology with chilling precision. Their new shields were stronger, and their weapons more devastating. Humanity's small victory had barely scratched the surface of what the aliens were capable of. In the distance, the air above the oceans began to shimmer with the presence of incoming Zephyrian warships. Hundreds of them, larger, more heavily fortified. Earth's defense systems were pushed to the brink, their resources stretched thin. The railguns could only do so much, and the alien ships now had countermeasures designed specifically to prevent their success. It seemed like no matter what humanity threw at the Zephyrians, the enemy kept coming, faster, stronger, and with a cruelty that left Earth's forces wondering how much longer they could hold the line. "We need to hit them where it hurts," Hayes said, his voice low and urgent. "This time, we don't just stop their ships. We break their ability to fight back. We need to hit their command center, their fleet's brain. The Dreadvale ***. If we can disable Varos's flagship, the rest of their fleet will crumble." Hart nodded, her mind already running through scenarios. "I've been thinking the same thing. But with their shields and countermeasures, it's going to be incredibly difficult. We'll need to use everything we've got. Every weapon, every strategy. We can't afford to miss." In the next hours, the world watched in tense silence as humanity's final offensive was prepared. Railguns, satellites, and fighter jets all would be brought into play for this one desperate strike. Earth's military knew this would be their last chance. If they failed now, there would be no second attempt. As the world's remaining railguns were lined up, ready to fire, the Dreadvale **** floated menacingly above the planet. Lord Varos watched from his command center as humanity's movements became clearer. He knew they would come for him. He had expected this moment, and he was prepared. "The humans think they've won before," Varos sneered. "They will regret it. This time, they will see the full power of the Zyphorian Empire. Let them try." With his orders given, the Zyphorian fleet prepared for the final confrontation. The humans had no idea what was coming. The battle for Earth's future would unfold in the skies above them, and no one could say who would emerge victorious. The countdown to humanity's final stand had begun. The final assault on the Dreadvale *** had begun. Across the globe, humanity's forces were mobilized in a coordinated attack that spanned every continent. From the depths of Earth's military command centers to the far reaches of space, the battle for survival was about to reach its pinnacle. The railguns, now at full power and precision, stood as humanity's last hope. If they could break through the Zyphorian flagship's advanced defenses, it could cripple the entire invasion force. But the stakes were higher than ever. If the humans failed, the Zyphorians would have no mercy, and Earth would fall. As the first salvo of railgun fire shot into the sky, a thunderous boom filled the air. The projectiles tore through the atmosphere with unimaginable speed, leaving behind trails of fire and smoke. The Dreadvale ***, a monstrous behemoth in space, loomed ahead like a dark omen. Its shields shimmered with the force of the incoming projectiles, but the Zyphorians had anticipated this strike. The ship's defense systems activated, and new countermeasures erupted into the void, trying to deflect the railgun's devastating charge. Lord Varos stood on the bridge of the Dreadvale ***, a calm but menacing presence amid the chaos. He watched as the first volley of human railgun shots collided with his ship's shield barrier. Sparks flew, and the shields flickered for a split second, but they held. Varos's lip curled into a cold smile. The humans had improved their weapons, but they were still no match for the might of the Zyphorians. "Increase shield power to maximum," Varos ordered. "We will not let them breach us again. Prepare the counterstrike." But on Earth, the humans weren't giving up. Their railguns continued firing, one after another, with relentless precision. And this time, the Zyphorians made a fatal mistake. While their shields were able to hold up against the initial impacts, the overwhelming barrage of railgun fire had begun to destabilize their energy core. Humanity's last-ditch efforts were pushing the Zyphorian fleet to its breaking point. "This is it," Hart yelled as the targeting systems locked in. "We've hit a weak spot in their shield network. The next shot, this one, has to be perfect." In the command center, Hayes nodded, sweat trickling down his face as he stared at the live footage. His eyes never left the holographic map, and his hand clenched into a fist as the next railgun fired. The projectile shot through space like a comet, cutting a path of destruction toward the Dreadvale ***. The tension in the room was unbearable as everyone watched the trajectory of the shot. For a moment, it seemed as if the Dreadveil would easily absorb the blow, but this time, the shields didn't react in time. With a deafening crack, the railgun struck the Xiphorian flagship's core. The ship's shields collapsed under the immense pressure, and the impact caused a series of violent explosions that tore through the ship's massive structure. The Dreadveil shuddered violently as internal systems failed, and fires raged throughout the flagship. The crew scrambled to contain the damage, but it was too late. The breach had gone too deep. Lord Varos stood frozen, his eyes wide with disbelief. He had not anticipated this. His flagship, the symbol of the Xiphorian Empire's supremacy, was crumbling. The shockwave from the explosion reverberated through the fleet, knocking several smaller ships off course and causing massive disarray. Varos's face twisted in fury, but there was no time for regret. The Xiphorians had underestimated the humans, and now they were paying the price. Retreat, Varos bellowed, his voice tinged with desperation. Full retreat, now. We're pulling back to the outer systems. As the Xiphorian forces began to withdraw, Earth's military forces seized the opportunity. Their remaining railguns fired at the retreating ships, picking off stragglers and damaging their fleet further. The tides of the battle had shifted. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity was in control. Back on Earth, cheers erupted from every nation as the news spread. The Dreadveil was no more, and the Xiphorian fleet was in disarray. Humanity had done the impossible. They had fought back against a seemingly unbeatable enemy and emerged victorious. The cost had been immense, but the spirit of Earth's defenders had proven unbreakable. The victory was hard-earned, and the war was far from over, but humanity had proven one undeniable truth to the universe. The Xiphorians had underestimated them, and now they would learn that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the strength of humanity was a force that could never be denied.